What's up everyone, my name's PlatinumHowler, coach of your Coquitlam Red Gyarados, and today I am bringing you my Week 6 match of the IBL D-League versus MidPokemaster and his Kentucky Torracats. You can see his crazy stupid team over to the right hand side of the screen, and note that Garchomp is his only potential Z user. The reason for that is just the way that he did his draft. The point distribution of his Mons didn't work out great so that he could have multiple viable Z captains. So instead he just went with Garchomp as his sole Z user, and he has a few Z points left over because of that, but oh well. So I have a little bit of explaining to do when it comes to this team that I have brought here. It's very, very different. It's a very, very different sort of team than what I have brought in the past. I have brought mostly balanced teams with a lot of the same Mons, but looking at Mid's team and just the matchup against mine, I didn't think I would have any chance of winning this game by bringing a balanced team, because he just has answers for everything I could try to do. So I just felt the matchup was really, really not in my favor. So what do you do when you have a matchup that's not in your favor? Well, you bring Hyper Offense, and I wanted to bring Hyper Offense with a few of the Mons on my team that I haven't really used as much, that I think deserve some more usage. So with that in mind, we have our Cloyster, which is not a Shell Smasher this time. Like I said, he just has too many things he could do to stop a Shell Smash Cloyster. I don't know if he brings Miltank. I don't know if he's going to bring a Thick Fat Miltank or a Sap Sipper Miltank. Thick Fat Miltank would completely shut down a Shell Smash Cloyster, and a what's it called? The Sap Sipper Miltank would completely shut down a Delmise that is trying to Rapid Spin Hazards away and stuff, so didn't want to bring Delmise for that reason. But we have our Cloyster, which has Rapid Spin, but that's not why it's here to spin Hazards away. It can if it needs to, but this is basically designed as a suicide lead. It's going to be able to get spikes up against his team. Spikes affect the vast majority of his team outside of doesn't do anything to Zapdos, but pretty much everything else takes good damage from spikes. We are Sash and basically max speed to try and get off as many layers of spikes as we can, and then his two possible removal options are the Mega Blastoise and the Zapdos. Zapdos I pressure offensively. I might be able to outspeed that and hit it with an Icicle Spear, but if it tries to defog as well, if it tries to defog, that's fine. I'm going to get a lot of damage off against it, which could help in the long run. I might decide that damage against the Zapdos is more worth it than him. I might decide that the damage is better for me than him defogging my spikes away. But the Mega Blastoise is also a very good hard stop to the Cloyster, and we have enough speed to guarantee outspeed a max speed Modest Blastoise. If he brings a max speed Timid Blastoise to outspeed my Cloyster, I'm going to be really upset, but I don't think he's going to do that. And if he's in a position where he can try to Rapid Spin the spikes away, I'm going to click Explosion, and I'll do big damage to the Blastoise, and because he will have no target to hit with the Rapid Spin, the spikes will stay on the field, and I'll be able to get a free switch into one of my more offensive threats. So I know I said that this Cloyster is designed as a suicide lead, and I definitely see myself leading this Cloyster most of the time, but depending on the 6 Mons that he brings and the apparent team composition that he's going for, I might decide to straight up lead with this Raikou. So for once, my team actually has quite the speed advantage over the opposing team. Raikou being my fastest Mon at 115, and then also Latias at base 110. Both of them outspeed his entire team. I should mention that coming into this game, Mid is having a very strong season. He has 4-1. His only loss came against Dr. Slacking, whose Tapu Koko put in a lot of work against him. So He is kind of weak to electro types, so I want to try and take advantage of him with this Raikou here, kind of taking a page out of Dr. Slacking's book. I have a Life Orb here with Thunderbolt Volt Switch. They hit his team pretty hard. Chestnut can take hits from it. Umbreon can take hits from it, but I can pivot out, get good damage on them, and then I have a couple of things that can take advantage of the likes of Umbreon and Chestnut. And then HP Ice is for the Garchomp. We do have to scout to see what his spread is going to be like, because Hidden Power Ice is not guaranteed to kill a Garchomp depending on what kind of investment he has. And then we also have Iron Head, which is going to potentially surprise in Alola Ninetales. That's what I mean when I say I may not lead with the Cloyster, depending on what his team looks like. If I expect him to lead Alola Ninetales and try to get Aurora Veil up immediately, I'm going to get a surprise KO on him with this Iron Head, unless he is max HP and gets a favorable roll. Next up, we have our Latias, bringing it back after 2 subpar performances. We're going to give it another chance to see if it can pull its weight this time. Timid max speed to guarantee outspeed the Alola Ninetales. That's why we have Psyshock, because Psyshock generally will do more damage to a Ninetales than Psychick. Dragon Pulse and Draco Meteor are there. Draco Meteor is there just in case I need the extra damage output to secure a KO on something. I'm going to be very cautious of clicking that move though, because I don't want to become setup fodder, especially for something like a Calm Mind Necrozma, because my team, as you will see, is basically full special offense. And if Necrozma starts to set up Calm Minds against me, I am in a very, very, very bad position. And then our last move is going to be Thunderbolt to make sure that we can do some actual damage to the Celesteela. We are holding Soldew. I kind of overlooked the fact that Soldew is a decent option for Latias's held item. Kind of wish that I had covered that in my draft analysis, but I realize now that I can use this on Latias. It is legal to use. It has been pretty hard nerfed since from Generation 6. And Generation 7, it only boosts the power of Dragon and Psychic type moves by 1.2 times. So a little bit less powerful than a Life Orb, but I won't be taking the chip damage that I would be from the Life Orb. And I'll get powerful Dragon and Psychic type attacks against his team that are decent coverage against everything. It hits everything neutrally except for the Celesteela. Speaking of Celesteela, actually, I forgot to mention that Mid did recently make some transactions going into this week. Before, he had Scizor and Ditto, which combined were worth 180 points. But when D. Willy, our week 1 opponent, decided to drop his Celesteela, Mid decided to scoop that up. He got Celesteela and now has 10 Mons on his team rather than 11. He had to trade both the Scizor and the Ditto to give himself enough points to add Celesteela to his roster. So we could potentially be going up against that Celesteela for the 2nd time this season already. Anyways, tangents aside, next is going to be our Sylveon, which is basically the only defensive Mon that we have on our team this week. The reason I need this Sylveon is for Reflect. Why do I need Reflect? Because Darmanitan absolutely destroys me. He can run Scarf Darmanitan and pretty much get a kill anytime it decides to come in. The scary thing about, even more scary about Darmanitan is my rockers. Fernape is a rocker, but I'm not bringing that as a rocker in this game. You'll see what it is soon. But Skarmory and Nidoqueen, I just didn't like their matchups in general, so I didn't have a room for a rocker in this team. The only hazards that I have, that I have brought here are the spikes on the Cloyster. So it's going to be harder to chip the Darmanitan down. And I anticipate having to sack maybe 1 or 2 Mons to that Darmanitan to get myself in a decent position. But we have this Sylveon to set up a Reflect to make sure that Darmanitan doesn't automatically get a KO every time it comes in. The rest of the moveset is pretty standard. Hyper Voice and Wish. Wish I see myself using to heal up my offensive teammates more so than my Sylveon. And I have to have Toxic to make sure that I can Toxic that Necrozma. As I said, if it gets into a position where it can start setting up Calm Minds and really going to town on my team, I have to Toxic it or else I just straight up lose to Necrozma. Moving on to Infernape, we have a Nasty Plot set with the Firium Z and Fire Blast for maximum damage output versus the Zapdos and the Necrozma. Focus Blast and Vacuum Wave are going to hit everything else that Fire Blast doesn't. Vacuum Wave is primarily for the Darmanitan. If I can get that thing chipped down enough, +2 Vacuum Wave can hopefully pick that thing off. Also, if I have a Reflect up, I could just go straight up for a Focus Blast against it and try to get the outright KO. But yeah, this thing is going to be nice to set up against pretty much anything except maybe this Zapdos. I'm not sure, well, pretty much everything except the Zapdos and Necrozma too. I'm not setting up in front of Necrozma with this thing, but Nasty Plot is really good setup against the Umbreon, especially because Foul Play, I'm not even sure 3-hit KOs me, so I could potentially even set up to +4 against the Umbreon if the Umbreon stays in and thinks it can take me on. So having Nasty Plot over Swords Dance helps in that way. And the last mon on our team, we have Yanmega, which is Choice Specs Tinted Lens set. Modest enough speed to outspeed timid max speed Necrozma because I can. And I have the extra EVs in there to potentially switch in hard to a Necrozma and live a Photon Geyser. I have a decent chance to live Photon Geyser if he's modest max special attack. There is a chance that he kills, but don't really have many switch-ins to the Necrozma. I need to make sure I keep good offensive pressure against it, so this Yanmega is going to be a lot better in this matchup if I manage to keep rocks off the field, and as well if the Ninetales isn't able to chip me down with the Hail, because I can't switch into Necrozma if Hail is up. I won't be able to survive the damage from Photon Geyser plus the chip damage from Hail in that case. If rocks are not up, this will be a very good switch in to the likes of Chestnut and Umbreon, and then I can put good offensive pressure against this team from there. Even though I am Tinted Lens, Celesteela will still resist Bug Buzz because it is normally 4 times resisted. So with Tinted Lens, it will just be 2 times resisted, and then Air Slash will hit that Celesteela for neutral damage. If I predict a switch out, I can, especially into something like Celesteela, I can go for a U-turn, get switch initiative, go into my Raikou, and start putting some good pressure on him with that Volt Turn Core. Tinted Lens means there are some open move slots, so we have Defog there just in case I need to get rid of some rocks. I can also potentially get rid of his Aurora Veil. Obviously, I cannot outspeed his Ninetales, and Ninetales will just completely blow me back with a Blizzard, so I don't anticipate me using Yanmega to defog Aurora Veil away, but if the scenario presents itself, then that's an option I have. That is the team, basically hyper special offense.jpg. That's the best way I can describe this team. It's going to be a very interesting game to say the least. I'm not very comfortable with this kind of play style, but I believe it's the same. It's a play style that is necessary to give myself an actual chance to win this game. So we'll see how it goes, and I'll be back with the battle shortly. Here we are back with the battle, and we see Mid's team. It's not all that surprising, looking to be much more offensively structured, similar to mine. The fact that we don't see either the Chestnut or the Umbreon means that Yanmega is probably going to have a hard time doing much of anything in this match. Those were 2 mons that it could switch in on and take advantage of pretty easily. But since neither of them are here, Yanmega is going to have a hard time getting in and putting in too much work in this game. We also don't see the Miltank, another bulkier Pokemon that Yanmega could have potentially switched in on had Miltank not been able to set rocks up. Miltank being gone means that Necrozma and Garchomp are his only 2 potential stealth rockers. And we also don't see Celesteela, so the fact that neither Umbreon or Celesteela are here make Latias much more viable in this matchup. The one mon that I am definitely not surprised to see, and the one that I talked about in my team builder ad nauseum about how much of a threat it is Darmanitan. And that mon is so much of a threat that I cannot ignore the potential of it leading against me. Even if I think that he's going to lead with this Ninetales like he does, I can't try to predict that and lead with my Raikou. I just have to lead with the safe Cloyster, so I can get my... So I have my Sash and I can see what move it locks itself into. It's just Darmanitan was way too much of a threat to ignore, so there was no way that I could lead anything else but Cloyster here. So he leads with his Ninetales and goes straight for a Moonblast. Doesn't opt to go for an Aurora Veil, which was interesting. I guess if I was going for a Shell Smash here, then he could have had things in the back to take a hit like the Blastoise, but I'm basically just going to get the one layer of spikes up, and he's going to take me out with a couple of Moonblasts. So now Raikou's going to come in, but I take a full minute between my Cloyster going down and me picking Raikou to come in, because I don't want to make it super obvious that I have a move for this Ninetales. It doesn't appear on my team that I have too much to take on this Ninetales. I have an Infernape that is naturally outsped by this Ninetales, so that Ninetales could get a powerful Moonblast off against it. But he does stay in, and I am able to surprise KO him with the Life Orb Iron Head. So now here comes the threat, and it's time to pick a SAC, and that SAC, as I mentioned, is going to be Yanmega. Since he brought more of an offensive team, Yanmega was basically the designated SAC to this Darmanitan from the start. If he wanted to go for a U-turn, it could switch into that, and then he would have a tough decision on his hands. Not quite sure if his Zapdos had enough speed for my Yanmega, but if he didn't, then I don't think he had anything that could come in and outspeed and one-hit KO me, so Yanmega could have got some big damage off there. But he does Flare Blitz, so I can bring in my Latias and get off a big Dragon Pulse against the incoming Zapdos. It does about half. Leftovers are going to bring him above half. The Hail stopping on this turn means that I won't be able to two-hit KO him with Dragon Pulse, and he's just going to roost up. It looks like I got a much more favorable roll on that first Dragon Pulse, but he's just going to sit here and try to roost, try to get some lower rolls, and eventually he's going to have to attack me. So I'm comfortable leaving my Latias here and just chipping this Zapdos down and making sure that it's as low as possible for something else in my team to take it out later in the game. After going for a second Dragon Pulse, I go for Psyshock there, just trying to gauge the damage, seeing if it was going to do any more damage than Dragon Pulse. Zapdos' physical defense is slightly lower than its special defense, so I figured it was worth going for. But now this is the turn that he's going to U-turn out as I get a crit with the Dragon Pulse. This is definitely potentially helpful for me later on in the game, but it was by no means a game-changing crit. And now the Darmanitan is going to come in and it's going to click U-turn. I have to leave my Latias in and hope that I can take a U-turn, and I do. I survive on 10 HP, which is massive. Now he has to pick something to take another Dragon Pulse, which is going to be the Zapdos. So as you can see, crit didn't matter because this Dragon Pulse would have knocked out the Zapdos even without the crit Dragon Pulse from previously. So thankfully, my Latias was able to hang on. Even if I took a round of hail damage, I would have still lived that U-turn on 1 HP because I take 9 damage per turn from the hail. But Darmanitan is able to come back in now. He goes for a Flare Blitz to knock me out. It wasn't going to be... it wasn't a great play to try and predict his U-turn and go into Sylveon or something, because then I might not have been able to bring this Infernape in and go for game, basically. Infernape's going to click Nasty Blot and basically hope I can outspeed the rest of his team and knock him out with some Z-moves and some Focus Blasts. Gotta cross my fingers that I can hit 1 or 2 Focus Blasts maybe against the mons that he has left. I'm hoping that he brings in the Necrozma first so I can just fire off my Z-move immediately, but in comes the Garchomp. He has not Scarfed, and I connect the Focus Blast, which is huge, and the Garchomp is going to go down. So We set up the Infernape on the Choice Lock Darmanitan's Flare Blitz, pick it off with a Vacuum Wave, connect our first Focus Blast against the Garchomp, and now he does bring in the Necrozma, so I'm free to fire off my Z move on this turn. The Infernal Overdrive is going to be more than enough to take out this Necrozma. And now, like 15 turns into the game, only something like that, we are down to a 3-to-1 scenario. All that's left is the Mega Blastoise. So basically, I've won the game at this point. I have a Raikou and a Sylveon basically at full HP in the back, so a combination of those two should be able to handle Mega Blastoise just fine. So I could go for a Vacuum Wave here just to get the chip to guarantee Raikou's KO, but I figure, why not go for another Focus Blast? If I have a 70% chance to hit it, and if I hit it and it knocks him out, then I get a 3-0 win instead of a 2-0 win. So I'm going to click Focus Blast again, and I hit the second one, and it knocks out the Blastoise from about 87%. And the hyper offensive strategy works to perfection. The Coquitlam Red Gyarados take this game over the Kentucky Torracats by a 3-0 score. GG to Mid. This was a very fun and fast-paced game. Make sure you go check out his side of the battle. His YouTube links will be in the description, as well as his Twitter. But I am so glad to have been able to use my team speed to my advantage in this game. I was just able to win this game on an all-out blitz, basically. Infernape, the Z captain, finally proving itself to be worthy of my first round pick. This is the second week in a row that it's come with a Z move, and the second week that it has nabbed a kill with its Z move. And with 4 kills in this game, it's now making an impression on the IBL's kill leaderboard overall. Mega Gyarados, even having not come in this game, still sits at number 1 in that category. But Infernape now is up to 6 kills on the season, so up to 6 kills. So it's I think after this game, it's going to be in the top 10 for kills in the league. On a list that is littered with fire types, to be honest. In fact, this entire match was just dominated by fire types. 9 kills in total, and 6 of them, 2/3 of them, at the hands of our respective fire types. I'm also very happy to see Latias contribute positively to the team this week. Its first 2 appearances, it didn't really do much, and it quite honestly let me down, but surviving that U-turn from the Darmanitan was huge. Leaving Latias in to hopefully eat that hit was my best play there. The fact that he wasn't able to KO and had to bring something else in to take the damage was massive. If he had been able to KO me, then he could have brought anything he wanted in. He could have brought the Blastoise in, or the Garchomp, or the Necrozma, and saved the Zapdos sack for later, and still had Darmanitan in the back to bring in again and claim a kill later. So that was a huge momentum swing, being able to live that. And I was able to live it because he was a jolly nature and not an adamant nature. He was jolly, max speed, scarfed, so he could speed tie with a speed boosting Yanmega. Latias potentially could have done even more in this game had I had Psychic over Psy Shock for the Zapdos. As you saw, Dragon Pulse, the first Dragon Pulse did about 50% to it. So had I had Psychic, which hits a little bit more, which hits a little harder on the special side than Dragon Pulse does, I could have potentially picked up the 2-hit KO on that Zapdos, and then I wouldn't have had to take any U-turn chip from that Zapdos. And even if his Darmanitan was adamant, he wouldn't have been able to OHKO me with a U-turn. Cloyster also coming in clutch with the Spikes chip, especially on the Garchomp and the Blastoise. I have no idea if I would have been able to pick up those KOs with Infernape at the end without that round of Spikes on the field. And also, shoutouts to Sylveon for coming for the second straight week in a row and never hitting the field. I never needed to bring my Sylveon in to take any hits. Never needed it in to set a reflect so that Darmanitan didn't completely bop me. I mean, it still did, but Had I brought Sylveon in and Darmanitan had even more switch-ins available to it than it did in this match, then that would have been that could have helped tremendously. Anyways, I don't want to ramble too much about the game, but with this win, we now move ourselves into second place in the IBL D-League. We are tied on record with Mid here. We're both 4-2, but I am now 4 differential points ahead of him. He has I believe he has a +4 differential now, and I am sitting at +8. Yes, so we have a 4-point differential lead, and we now control our own destiny pretty much for the most part. Going forward, if we win our last 3 games, then we should be in a very good spot to take one of the first round buys, one of the first round playoff buys, and go straight through to the semifinals. Mid or Sharpedo43 are one of those guys who are also doing quite well. If they were to overtake me, they would have to get 1 or 2 really big differential wins, and I don't know if they'll be able to do that. So as far as I'm concerned, if I can win my last 3 matches, I should be in very good shape to earn a semi-final playoff berth. So with that in mind, we have another stiff challenge ahead of us next week, when we take on OP Jellicent and the Toronto Leaf Storms, who may or may not be undefeated and may or may not be the only coach in the standings that is currently ahead of us. So make sure you tune in for that game as we try to continue our winning streak here in the IBL D-League. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel for future videos, leave a comment please. I need more comments on my videos. Comment on how I can make them better, or what was your favorite play, or tell me you like that Infernape set or something. I don't care, I need more comments please. Anyways, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week.